Fantasy Football Tips Podcast with Mills, JP, Quilgiano, and Cliff.
Hi, you're listening to the Fantasy Football Edge podcast. It's game week 13. My name is Mills and I'm joined this week, I'm delighted to say, by JP and Quilgiano. He has returned. Good evening, gents.
Good evening.
G'day.
How's it going? Quilgiano, you had a week off last week. Did you enjoy the break?
I did, yeah. It's a shame it couldn't continue for this week as well, but I've committed to something, so I'm definitely going to give it 50%, that's for sure.
Okay. And JP, I mean, he gave it 100% last week, but I'm not sure how those tips went down. JP, thoughts on your predictions last week?
One bad prediction and then many good ones. So I think you're being harsh there.
I mean, Quilgiano, I'm going to come to you to ask this question. I don't know if you listened to the podcast last week. Probably not, knowing you.
Correct.
David De Gea was the Gary of the week. Thoughts on that?
I mean, we've got a little WhatsApp group, obviously. So when I saw it on there, I just shook my head thinking, what is he doing? I mean, it wasn't, it wasn't a bad, it's a side tip, that is. So that's a side tip at best, where you just say, invest in the Man United defence, because you're including De Gea as part of that. He's definitely not a Gary. Unless he steps up and starts taking penalties for Man United, there's no way he goes down as a Gary.
So, I mean, JP, to be fair, it was a bold shout, and it could have come off, but it was over after about 8 minutes, wasn't it? So, never mind.
I agree. It was a bad Gary. However, there were some good tips as well.
Okay, so fair enough. We'll give you that.
There was. I mean, how many goals were scored this weekend? I haven't got the answer to hand. Yeah, it was pretty much. It was like shooting fish in a barrel if you're giving tips out, really.
Well, you say that, but my steal or no deal was quite good, and it was no deal from Mills, and actually ended up with an assist. So some outside chances that came in for me.
Well, we are going to do steal or no deal again today, but that's going to be in podcast extra time, because actually we forgot to do it in the standard pod last week, and we ended up doing it in the podcast extra time. So that'll be coming up, and we're going to be talking a little bit about Man United with the return of Ibrahimovic and Paul Pogba in the podcast extra time too, along with our usual captain selections. I want to just switch over to the other side of Manchester just to kick off the podcast, really, and talk a little bit about Man City. They're, well, for me, it's a massive issue because I've got Aguero in my team, and I know Aguero's one of the top transferred out players this week. I think people's patience has run out. Is it time to ditch all Man City strikers, given that there's going to be a lot of rotation between now and Christmas? And then my second question on that is it worth doubling up on the midfielders?
I mean, yeah, I think the midfield's where your safe money is. I think it's one of those. 1 week you're going to get punished, the other week you're going to get rewarded with Aguero and Jesus. We call him Jesus. Are we happy with?
You can call him whatever you like. It's Jesus, everyone else says, but you carry on quickly. I know you are the god, so.
Yeah, it is a close relation. I just think. I mean, it's bold not to have them, but with the Champions League, that kind of dictates how they might line up. But they have got an easy fixture. I wouldn't be surprised to see 4-4-2 with both of them playing to this weekend.
Your thoughts,
throw that
JP?
little spanner in the works.
Yeah, I like that, JP.
Yeah, I think you have other options, don't you, in forwards in other teams. So I don't think you need to have a Man City striker when you've got their midfielders anyway. So I don't think they're not essential anymore. So I'm with Quilgiano. I think he's made a good point.
Okay, if you want to read more about it, there's an article on fantasyfootballedge.co.uk as well that I wrote today. You can hear my thoughts, or read my thoughts there. So, gents, we'll get straight in then. Let's go to the Gary of the week. Quilgiano, the baton is back with you for the Gary for game week 13.
Well, I'm going to give a little prelude. I almost feel like this is a week where, again, if you're looking for a month, like a manager of the month type award, you might almost go for the free hit this week and just load up on Man United, Man City, and Arsenal players, because I feel like the fixtures are ripe. I feel like this is the way to go. So I could have chosen anyone, but I've gone for someone who I think guaranteed is going to start, and that is Lukaku. I think I just like that fixture, the fact they're at home, Pogba returning. You can see the confidence is back. I think there's so many threats within that Man United team that actually Lukaku is going to benefit from that, having a bit more space out there. And I think he's going to be in the mix. There's your Gary of the week.
Like it. I think my early thoughts are there too, because I've already made that transfer. Actually, Lukaku is the one player to come in for me, and he's currently selected as my captain. So I think I probably agree with you there.
I take it Aguero's gone then, Mill. So you've already made your decision there as well.
Unfortunately, not. He's still sitting in my team, so I don't. Actually, yeah, it's. I made it before the Champions League game, so obviously, I thought Aguero was going to play in that. I thought he was going to start, but like you say, who knows what might happen? He could come on for 20 minutes and score a goal or two, or he may even start with Jesus and Aguero. So it is difficult to predict, but I think Jesus out of the two will definitely play. It's tough. So who knows? It could be a bad week for me, or it could be a great one. So we'll see. Let's go to the long shot then, the Xabi Alonso.
So long shot for this. The idea is that you're looking to steal some points. So you're looking for somebody who not everyone is going to have. And therefore, I've avoided the obvious choices because I've already mentioned there's some good fixtures this week for the top clubs. So I kind of couldn't decide between the two. So, in fact, I will decide between the two, and I'll put one down to a side tip. I'm going to go Callum Wilson, returning from injury. Good hat-trick last weekend. Bournemouth have got a nice little run of fixtures as well, so you might want to put some faith in him and have him for a good few weeks. But I think that's the long shot this week. It might be worth a punt.
Some people will shoot you down there and say it's not much of a long shot after he's just scored a hat-trick. What would you say to those people?
Shut your mouths. I would say pretty much it's... how many players are going to have him in there?
Definitely squirming.
How many are going to have Callum Wilson in their team? Probably not very many. So therefore, it's a long shot there. It's low price, so there's definitely long shot material there.
Yeah, 94,000.
I'll go back to my previous comment. Shut your mouth.
Okay.
Millsy.
JP.
He's been selected by 1.9%, so Quilgiano makes a good point. Very few people have him.
That's right, but I think it was it was a lot less than that last week because, like I say, nearly 95,000 people have put him in already. So he's in the top 5 transfers in. So,
just before we get, I mean, obviously with this podcast, I literally mentally shut down altogether. So nothing gets committed to my long-term memory store. I can't afford to lose any information by this time wasting that we're doing. But did I mention Callum Wilson a few weeks ago as a tip? I'm pretty sure I did. You'd have to go back to that, Mills.
Well, go back through the archives. I think you might have said it in 2015 at some point.
No, I'm pretty sure that what one of the last podcasts, Wilson came up as a tip from Quilgiano. So there we go.
Okay, well,
we'll have to check that.
we'll certainly do so. Right, gents, we're going to have a very short break and then we'll be back with the side tips.
The Fantasy Football Edge Podcast. 90% drivel, 9% ego, and 1% tips.
Okay, so just recovering from Quilgiano's long shot there, we're going to go straight in with the side tips. Who wants to go first this week, gents? Is it Honor back with Quilgiano, or we're going to let JP have a shot?
I know JP worries about his airtime, so get on there, mate. Come on.
Put him on the spot.
Quilgiano, I feel like you should go first. You started very well there, and I don't want to steal your thunder, so I will come in after you.
I'll tell you what. I'm going to wrap up the top 3 because they're the obvious ones. Okay. In terms of like the top clubs that have got decent fixtures, I think Jesus, Sané, KDB at City are all kind of essential options. You can throw others into the mix in terms of Silva and Sterling, but those are the ones that I think are really performing. And I think now KDB is looking like a lethal. He's looking like the value that you should be getting from that type of £10 million player. Is it about 10 million?
Yeah, he's definitely coming to form.
Yeah, I think Sanchez at Arsenal is starting to look lethal again as well. I think he's potentially somebody who you have to have in your team. And then at Man United, Pogba looking decent again. I know he's been heavily transferred in. I've already tipped Lukaku. And I think like the likes of Martial, are going to start playing regularly now, and I think he is somebody who has got a little bit of differential because you can't trust the game time, but he is someone who I also think is lethal. So there you go, mate. I've picked out the obvious side tips that I think people need to be gearing up for.
I mean,
Over to you,
JP, there's so many still left on the table there.
There are. I'm going to reel through a couple. Jamie Vardy, obviously top striker against West Ham. Very, very low confidence side right now. I think he's good for a goal. I'm going to the Crystal Palace Stoke fixture. I think there could be some goals there. I think Zaha again. I tipped him as my long shot and he ended up scoring. I think he's a good side tip now. He's more than a long shot. If you look at Stoke, you've got an option in Choupo-Moting. He looks like a good player to me. Thankfully, got me a few points for my team. I'm moving down the fixtures. Again, Watford, Richarlison. We always get it wrong every week.
Well, you do, yeah.
But never mind. People know who I mean. He's obviously a good option. He's scoring against Newcastle. They've just got thumped by United. So I'm trying to pick out some slightly lesser-known ones there. I mean, Richarlison's not the best example, but the two.
I think he's a pretty good example. He scored 2 goals in these last 2 games. He's bang on.
I appreciate that. Thank you.
I mean, what I kind of like about that as well, those tips, is that from the way you were like saying, I can almost picture you just scrolling down the laptop, looking at fixtures and just picking them off randomly. So, like, clearly you've put no thought into that, and that's what I love. That type of that sort of transparency from you, JP.
Well, you actually wrong. I'm disappointed that I actually give off that impression.
He's actually going from the bottom up.
Anyone that actually feels that way. This is actually genuine. But nevertheless.
I mean, I can't believe neither of you have mentioned Spurs versus West Brom.
It's not, mate. Are we done? I'm not done here.
Oh, sorry. I thought you were done.
Millsy, I was nowhere near done.
Okay, carry on reading through that fixture list, JP.
Thank you. As I'm working down the fixture list, reading them off the top of my head, I'm looking at the Spurs West Brom game, Millsy, and I'm thinking you've got an option in Ericsson. Very good.
Heavily transferred out player, but carry on.
Well, he's a differential, then, isn't he? Other options in the likes of Son. In the likes of, you've got to be Millsy. You've got to be in the likes of Son. I mean, Harry Kane's an obvious option, so I don't really want to do that as a side.
Is he? Is he an obvious option?
Yes.
2 game weeks, he's failed to score. I know he scored in Champions League yesterday, but people losing patience with an expensive striker like that?
No,
I'm not sure. No.
He's proven that he's in that top bracket. He's going to be picking up a lot of goals. You're just going to have to bear with it. You can't be chopping and changing.
These side tips, by the way, are going to have to be called main tips soon because it's taken up most of the show. So,
okay, well, I'm going to wrap it up then. Is that okay, JP?
Yes, I'm sort of done, yeah.
Liverpool defence is awful. Hazard looks back to his best as well. I think Hazard and Morata are your other 2 major considerations. But again, that is going to require, all these tips that we've just put out will probably require major surgery on your team, the way you're going to be cutting it up. So choose wisely, have a strategy.
Absolutely, or be prepared to take a minus 36. Right, we'll be back straight after this short break with a special Black Friday offer, an audio question all the way from Mumbai, and a new feature that I'm introducing called Stat Attack.
The Fantasy Football Edge Podcast, giving you the edge over your rivals.
Okay, gents, we've got a question in. We've got a question in all the way from Mumbai. He tweeted in last week, FPL Heart. His name's Rob, and I called him out on it. I said, look, send us a question. Get us some audio. Fire it across. Sushant was too busy for it, but FPL Heart wasn't too busy. So, gents, I'm going to play you this question all the way from Mumbai.
Hello, gents. This is Rob here from Mumbai, India. I have some questions related to FPL. First question is, I'm around 2.5 million at this time in the overall rankings. Do you think game week 12 is a good time to activate the wildcard?
I'm going to stop that there. So he's actually gone in straight with 3 questions. So game week 12, he sent it just at the end of game week 12. So game week 13, good time to play the wild card?
Well, he's going to get another one after Christmas, so not too much to worry about. Well, after in the new year, not too much to worry about. Like when I feel like now you're over the hump of all the different players and who's going to kick in. So now you actually can start to build that the team that you want. Nothing wrong with playing it. That's my honest opinion. Nothing wrong with playing it. And as I've said, though, I seriously think the fixtures are in favour of the top clubs this week. So if you are going to do it, you might want to start to tip the scale in their directions as best you can with those maybe cheap players such as Wilson and another one I didn't mention, Niasse. But there we go.
Although he has just picked up a suspension, hasn't he, Niasse? So you probably don't want to go with him. Anyway, next.
Oh dear.
Oh dear.
Oh yeah, he did. Yeah, he's got the.
He got
horrendous.
done for simulation.
That was after the simulation.
Sorry,
yeah.
JP, what were
Obviously.
you saying then? Horrendous.
Well, it's important to recognise. I remember last season getting absolutely slated for the same situation. So Quilgiano, not impressed. Not impressed.
Well, this is Monday morning, and obviously that decision hasn't been made yet, unless you've edited this together and tried to make it look bad.
Very clever. Okay, let's go. Let's hear what else Rob had to say.
My second question is, can you name 5 teams or players who offer the best chance of getting a clean sheet?
I think he just means generally the best 5 players, teams to get a clean sheet this week.
I mean, you've got to go United straight away at home against Brighton. They've kept 8 clean sheets so far. So United defence. Next option would be Spurs. They're playing against West Brom at home. West Brom look hideous at the moment. And then finally, you could even look. I know it's against Arsenal, but Burnley are very, very solid at the back. And they've got quite cheap defenders, so they could be a third option.
Struggling for the 4th and 5th, JP? It is a difficult question because we don't tend to see that many.
I think you've got to look to the home teams.
Yeah, you don't need more than 3, I don't think, really, because maybe 4th. If you were going to look at the fixtures, you might go, I don't know, tough decision. You might go...
Daniels from Bournemouth. I quite like
Bournemouth maybe against Swansea, yeah.
Okay, and we'll go to the third and final question.
Third question is, this is actually for a later period. Can you tell me some fringe players from top 6 teams who are going to get game time and points during the busy Christmas period?
Fringe players from the top club.
I love the banter on the show and the fact that you keep it short and simple, at least for the cheapies here. Until next time, cheers, goodbye.
Oh, I like
the
it.
cheapies.
The cheapies. I like the way he's picked up on that.
Send him a free membership, Mills.
Players.
That's all I'll say. Send him a free membership.
I think I might. Top fringe players then. I like that question, actually, over the Christmas period. You know, potentially you're going to see some different players coming in, maybe from some of the top teams as well, that we don't see through the rest of the year. So, thoughts on that, Quilgiano?
Well, he's a massive long shot. I don't think it'll happen, but is it Phil Foden? Got some Champions League time for Man City. Could potentially sneak in some game time, but unsure on that one. I think fringe players like Rashford, I think might benefit. He might get some solid game time. You might consider him a regular in the United squad at the minute, but I think he's somebody who could rotate in. And the likes of Martial, Son at Spurs, I think will pick up points regularly. I think he's a good player who does rotate in and out. JP?
Possibly some of the Chelsea midfield that don't always start, so the likes of Willian, over a busy period. They're quite relatively well priced, and they're doing quite well at the moment.
I think some of the defences are a bit like quite tough to pick at the minute in terms of like those Spurs wing back slots, and never guaranteed who's going to play. That Chelsea back line, you're never 100% sure. Like, didn't Zappacosta start at the weekend?
Yeah, he did, yeah. And David Luiz is out of favour as well, isn't he? So
some of the top clubs, like those defensive lineups, not always sure who's going to be playing. I'm answering a totally different question, but there you go.
Okay, I think he did a pretty good job. I mean, he's got his money's worth there, considering he's not paying and he has 3 questions. So, but fair play to Rob there for getting those questions in on audio. If you want to do the same, fire them across, put them on an MP3 or something like that, and send them over to support@fantasyfootballedge.co.uk. We're going to go towards my brand new feature in a second, but before we do, I just want to tell you about a special Black Friday offer that we've got this week. It's that big busiest weekend of the season, isn't it? Oh, and one other thing to say, actually, when you think Black Friday, think deadline, because Friday the 24th of November is the deadline, so don't miss it. So many people in our mini league miss that deadline, don't they, gents? I mean,
they miss it on a Saturday at 11:30, so there's no excuse.
That's true. So anyway, if you do want to take us up on the members offer, it's we're going to give you a massive 50% off 50% off for this year and for the ongoing years that you stay as a member. And you just need to use the cleverly titled voucher code of Black Friday. So go on to fantasyfootballedge.co.uk, hit the join us button, sign up, and use the code Black Friday. Anyway, gents, enough about that. We're going to finish the show, the standard show, in a second before we go to podcast extra time. But I want to introduce this stat attack feature. I think that one of them might not surprise you, but I think the other one will. So the first one, Liverpool have kept a clean sheet in 7 of their last 8 home games in the Premier League. Can you believe that? I saw this stat and I couldn't believe that. I had to go back and double check it. I didn't believe it.
That has shocked me.
Does Stat Attack come with a pillow so we can just really nestle down and have a good sleep during this section?
Quilgiano, that's very harsh. At least my stats are at least my facts are accurate. Yours aren't. So anyway, my question is that going to be? Is it going to be 8 out of 9 this week as they play Chelsea?
Well,
to
do you know what?
back
Forget
to FPL.
Liverpool's back line, because I put Gomez in this week thinking, he's playing very regularly in the Premier League. And then what does Klopp do? He goes and switches it. So the answer to that is no. They're not going to get a clean sheet.
Okay.
Unless he plays Gomez.
And then my next stat, this is probably even more boring actually. Olivier Giroud has made more substitute appearances, 10 to be precise, in the league this season, which is more than anyone else in the league. Will he make another this week, and will he score?
That's a rubbish stat, Mills.
What? That's not a rubbish stat. Because
do you know what?
But no
this
one
is
cares,
salt in the wound for me. This is salt in the wound for me because I've got Lacazette, who's probably been the most substituted player of the season for Giroud.
Absolutely. Even when Giroud wasn't on the bench, he got subbed last week.
So yeah, I really like that stat attack, mate. Fantastic.
We'll see whether we bring it back next week.
We'll have to see what other words we can make rhyme, and then we could do a feature on those as well. That'd be great.
What, like Steal or No Deal that we've got coming up in podcast extra time? Right, gents, that is the end of the standard podcast for the cheapies. If you do want to listen to the podcast extra, the Black Friday special offer is actually available right now if you're listening to this podcast. So you can go in, you can use it, and then you can get the podcast extra time, which we will be back with right after this.
This is a warning. We're going deep into extra time with Fantasy Football Edge.